Hi, this is Paul. I know I haven't made a lot of videos this week. It's been a pretty crazy week because December has those 2 weeks that I sort of block off. All these requests for conversations and things that go sort of get shoved into January. And I thought, boy, once the holidays are over and we get back to sort of normal work, I'll just start motoring through January. And then we had a pretty significant funeral this week that I had to do at Living Stones, and some other things came up. And so schedule is just blown apart in terms of the kind of free time that I use to make videos. So you didn't get a lot, but we had that major conversation with the twins that I posted yesterday, which I thought went really well, and I really look forward to seeing how that conversation progresses. See if Sherry mentioned. I think it'd be an amazing conversation with Sherry and her sister and the twins together, the four of them. That would be a really good conversation. And Sherry's got a channel, so they could pull that off. But I hope that continues. I hope that continues. One of the things that's sort of also been taking a lot of time this week is Luke got me into a Signal group, and then I started another Signal group for some other reasons to sort of address the TLC status of the TLC thing, and it's been really fun diving deeper with a few people in the TLC about the future, and that's been good. But yesterday was just wall to wall. It was just 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. funeral with travel, and it doesn't mean that I haven't been doing a lot of thinking. It's actually been a very rich week. And part of the problem is that I had a bunch of stuff from the week before that I was like ready. I wanted to do some Substack writing. I wanted to do some making videos. And so now I've got the situation where I've got 10 videos in mind, and I have an hour right now. I've got a council meeting tonight. And so I just want to get something out there, at least get another conversation going. And this one will be about YouTube, but also about some more significant things. This video popped up. This is Linus from just over the border in Canada, major YouTuber on tech stuff. Um, and his the title of this video is YouTube is Killing Normal Videos, and he begins by sort of going through the feed and talking about what's at the head of the feed, and then gets into some of these questions about the future of YouTube. And I think for a long time now, many of us we've been able to upload for free about as much as we want in many cases. And YouTube has been a platform for this community. YouTube has sort of been the sea on which this flotilla has operated. Well, what happens when they take away the sea? What happens to the flotilla then?
We're not that kind of show. But so how much farther? And this was sort of the conversation that some people were trying to have in the Reddit thread. But like, how much more enshtification is there for YouTube to go through? I mean, I do feel like
Now you can find the enshtification meme all over YouTube. It basically goes along that these tech companies start with massive amounts of investor capital at first, and they sort of burn through it to gain an audience and then the longer these platforms go, the tighter the grift gets. And many of you see it on YouTube. You'll say, oh, there's so many ads on your videos, and I'll say, YouTube on the back end sort of says, well, you can not monetize your videos, and you can not put ads in your videos, but the terms of service are very clear on YouTube, which are they can put as many ads as they want to in any video, whether or not a channel is monetized. And even my Vanderclips channel, which is not monetized at all, it was so interesting when Sam, making a video about moralistic therapeutic deism, played some of that Tim Keller clip, and he had ads on both sides of it, and that was not a very long clip. And this is going to continue with YouTube. Now you might think, well, we'll go over to Rumble, or I've had my channel duplicated on Library for a long time, and the link to that is below, and you can watch there. I don't know if they are ad free. My audio feed for this channel is ad free, and that the link to that is below. And so there's a number of you that just listen to the audio podcast because there's no ads and there's no payment, and you can have that. But this raises the whole, when Rod Harris talks about the economic aspect of this needs to be paid attention to, he is not wrong. And basically what the introductory free ride, freemium, and Enshtification curve that many of the services that we've grown accustomed to uses, well, that does come.
Like this whole AI slop game thing might be the jump the shark moment.
It feels like it to me. I think I ranted about this.
Even these guys, they're a pretty significant channel, but you've got the QR code down there at the bottom, and they've, even though they don't have any, at least in this video, they don't have any paid promotions here within the video. It's true that in some way the whole ad the whole video is an advertisement for who they are.
Last week, but yeah, YouTube really needs to find their way. I am genuinely rather terrified
because that was the answer, right? Like that was the community's and your answer to how we're going to not have everything be major studio funded and we're going to have like indie be possible. The answer is
YouTube has been the bastion.
Yes, they've been the way for small projects to survive and fund themselves, off platform on Patreon or even through YouTube directly. But how is VOD supposed to survive on YouTube when literally AI slop games are given better billing in the first 2 pages of the site than
significantly better billing
than VOD videos?
Now, these guys know the YouTube game very well, and they understand that anything that's promoted by YouTube will get seen. And once you start playing around with YouTube, you begin to notice this very quickly, because you can put out, I put out a lot of videos, obviously. You can put out 10 videos, and you have a sense of, this video feels pretty good, and it's not pretty good. And of course, it's different taste for different audiences. But then you'll just get a video which will not be a particularly good video, but for one reason or another, the algorithm runs with it, and then you'll get all kinds of new subscribers, you'll get all kinds of views on that, and then people get all excited. But that isn't exactly what it appears to be either. You might get all of those new subscribers, but that might be the only video they ever watch. And you might get all this traffic on that one video, but they could leave the next time. And so that's where we pay a lot of attention to these subscriber numbers and these view counts. But even if you're just on the back end and you start looking around at these numbers, you begin to realize they don't necessarily give a good indication for what kind of value you're producing and what kind of commitment there is to, whether it's attention or whether it's financial support, or whether it's influence, what those metrics are like. And of course, the TLC has sort of been a strange creature in that where there's a relatively small number of people who will watch a lot, and then there are a lot further out, you get people that'll see this or that or this or that. I mean, you regularly have it if you'll say TLC or this little corner or something like that. And someone who's been around in the comment section or someone who's been around quite a bit, they'll say, well, what do you mean by that? So there's a huge discovery issue with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to say VOD. I don't mean that, a lot of this other stuff isn't also technically video on demand, but that's the way that YouTube refers to it. Is there's shorts, there's VODs, there's live. So VOD, that's like your traditional, 16:9 YouTube upload that's meant to be watched on a screen that isn't vertical. And isn't meant to be like, played a game on with AI slop junk. And I don't know. And obviously this, affects me personally, right? Because that's the majority of Linus Media Group's work is VOD. And even though we do dabble in shorts, I can tell you now that unless you're selling something through your shorts, there's not there's not a sustainable amount of money to be made, not at any kind of scale. Like I think as an individual person, you could survive on shorts, just kind of filming yourself, or maybe even a couple people, a few people, small team. But beyond that, you're going to need to start to seek sponsorships. You're going to need to start to sell something. Ran into a really cool shorts creator who became a shorts creator because of his like frozen dessert business, as opposed to
there's a bunch of that
way
going
around.
on. It's weird, but yeah.
Where like the ads, the ads have become the content, which is sort of wild.
Oh, that part's very interesting.
Hey, I think there's some people out there who would make the same argument about us.
Yep. It's that's again where your line is, because some people see certain types of content as ads.
It also depends on their
necessarily
perception, right? Like there is stuff that we do that I would say it could be classified as advertisement. Like we did a fully sponsored short on these like wave generator things. We just put them in my hot tub and turned it into a whirlpool.
Yeah, no, I mean we do
actually really fun.
Fair amount of things that are effectively ads. We try to make them entertaining, but they're effectively ads.
But there's a lot of people who consider like, anything that we do building a computer to be an ad simply because those are things you can buy. And it's like, well, no, that's not actually how that works either.
The line gets funky.
And the line does get funky. And if you, especially now during CES, I mean, I've always watched a fair amount of tech news. I've always, I've built my own computers. I've done all this kind of stuff for a long time. And during CES, then the line really gets blurred, where all of the computer companies are putting out things. And then, is this a sponsored piece? Is this not a sponsored piece? And I know some people who are much deeper and fairly successful in the tech side of YouTube in terms of selling consumer electronics and that. And it's it's a business, and in a lot of ways a lot of what we've been using YouTube for, while there is an economic aspect to it, it's not exactly a business. And I watched this video, I watched a few other videos, and then it was interesting that YouTube pulled up Daniel and Michelle and someone else, a video from a month ago. And actually, Charlie's Little Corner had clipped a segment of this. There's a ton of good stuff in this video. Now, all of these, this is very TLC, like all of these channels are small. Aspasia Psyche, 243 subs. OG Rose, that's the largest, 1.76K subs. Move with Seth, that's the largest, I guess, at 3,000 subs. So, hey, subscribe to all of them. And I'm about halfway through. It's a long video, but I love the way they begin this video and how they get into it.
The walrus. We were all set.
Are built for the algorithm. Yeah, and flare the nostrils slightly.
You just have to end the video because Daniel's killing me.
Look scared and surprised at the same time.
And if you could hit that little bell, if you can hit that little bell, if you can hit that little bell. Oh, I love that one.
I'll say one other thing, which is a little more of a...
Subscribe. We forgot.
Well, you should subscribe because...
Throwing up his marketing, Daniel. Stop it. We're throwing up his marketing. Just stop.
Maybe it's just better if we descend into mad laughter. Like this is like 2 or 3...
Or what if like the algorithm would really like falling out of the chair or something?
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much of this is you're actually going to put on YouTube.
What's all going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of it.
I'm over it. I'm over worrying about it.
It's gonna get taken down for hate speech.
But they even had a teaser on the front, so there's a little bit of editing. I understand that.
It's because we're unveiling the secrets of the
algorithm. What's up with that? Why did it choose that video to recommend to a whole lot of people as
algorithm? Yeah, hit the button. I'm totally cool, and I'm down to discuss anything in any way whatsoever. So it works for me.
I did want to say briefly though about the stupid YouTube algorithm. What's up with that? Why did it choose that video to recommend to a whole lot of people? Is what it seems like.
Because we did our makeup.
And again, and even if you're a small creator, even if you have a small channel, you'll notice that you have all these videos, and then this one video, for one unexplainable reason, just sort of takes off. Certain videos, you kind of know, you know, if you've got a bigger name on the video or something like that, they'll bring their own crowd. But this video takes off and you don't know why, and doesn't mean it's completely irrational, but
You know, the makeup paid off, didn't it? I did mine, so it really worked.
The double toothpick. If you do the double toothpick.
Yeah, the
it's
double
like,
toothpick. The algorithm can't resist. It's like, oh, garages are hot.
There you
Garages
go.
are so hot. No, you went for one of those provocative. I don't care about your degrees. That's what did. Algorithm
Oh,
loves that
what
fight.
It was.
It wants that fight. It likes that go after people, because then all people do. Yeah, they love that stuff. They love that stuff.
Yeah, watch so and so get destroyed by. Yeah. Okay, that'll be the next one. Then I'll call the next one. Watch us destroy.
Yeah, it'll be
YouTube
10K.
in the world.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
In
No,
5
no,
seconds.
It destroys algebra.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's the nerdy
Yeah.
version.
Yeah,
Check it out.
people on the net will get that. But
And then in
otherwise-
brackets in 2 hours.
In 2 hours. Destroy in 2
Normally
hours.
it's got to be a 5-minute clip.
That's why they picked it, because you had that provocative, and we talked about AI a little bit, and we made claims that can piss people off. That's what the thing loves, right? So
Now I've got a marketing course with
Well, I mean, it is a thing though. Like you make something for the internet, and then you're about to just like launch it, and then you have to go, oh, what's the title? You know, you have to frame it somehow.
I know.
And I mean, I do think that you picking that line from Daniel was, I mean, strategically a good move with the algorithm, apparently.
So what happens is, like, as I just watch it back, and there was something just about the way he said it that I was like, oh, I like that. And I thought, fine. And I actually went and changed it a couple of times to relationship, because I thought to myself, I don't know that it actually captures what we talked about, but something about the line I liked. And I just go with that. And it's like,
Sure.
most people won't even understand what this title means. It's probably the worst title ever if you ask a marketing person. That's how I'm usually thinking.
and again, I very much related to this because, well, y'all know the kind of titles I make, and sometimes they're a little clickbaity, but sometimes I sit and think about the video and I think this is what this video is about. And a lot of the times I make a title that there'll be a key word that I can remember to find the video, because after you're, up over 3,000 videos, they're kind of hard to find.
Okay. I just put a title on. All right. So I just need to make them aggressive and
angry,
spirit.
aggressive and angry and fight. Yeah, it's a funny thing with all of that. If you have a pic that has a face, because the YouTube is now incentivized to get facial recognition, so they're trying to gather data on faces. That's why everyone has their face. And also the algorithm really likes faces that are like, it has like a shock look on the face. So it's like, because then you have to click. You're not sure if it's like, it likes this ambiguous emotion.
And then when I troll certain Christian YouTube channels because of their thumbnails, and then meet the guy at ARC, and yeah, you're the guy that trolled me about the thumbnail faces. He says, I don't do any of those thumbnails. It's my team. And again, that gets back to sort of what Linus was talking about with respect to very quickly what happens with YouTube with this competitive thing is that, okay, well, first someone just starts out doing a channel in their basement or their office or something like this. And then, they grow larger and larger and larger and larger. And before you know it, well, now they've really got to bring in the cash because they've got to support a whole team of people. And off it goes.
Shock look. And
Still face experiment.
Yeah.
That's what traumatizes babies.
Yeah,
And she's going to mention this quite a few times. It's something that I'd never thought of, that the traumatizing babies, and then they're going to get into the trauma bonding, which is, when she said those terms together, I thought, oh wow, that's a huge. I'd never thought of trauma bonding, but once the term gets up there, it's like, oh gosh, that is all over the place.
Marketers will tell you to deliberately make that face when you put your content on, and there's people like
I see it.
For example, Sabine Hassenfelder comes to mind.
She does that. Yeah, the scientist.
High-level physicist, like talking about complex stuff, but for the algorithm, she does this kind of dunce face. And but like I always kind of felt like, do I want to turn into a cartoon in order, because there's something cartoonish about it,
It's cartoonish.
Those thumbnails freak me out. Yeah, all those thumbnails. Like all that stuff. I can tell it's obviously all like the people are doing things for particular marketing reasons. I just refuse to know what they are because I don't care. And I'm not doing it. I'm not doing.
No, it's a very interesting thing in the sense of, is it
Now, Daniel's going to have a really thoughtful riff here because it was funny because when he was talking about this, it was like, wow, he has been reading my mind for the last 8 years as I go round and round about these things.
stubborn not to do it? Is it virtuous not to do it? Is it wise not to do it? Is it principled not to do it? You know, what is the ethics of doing it or not doing it, right? Like, what is the ethics of caring about the algorithm, right? Like, I think that speaks to money and business and economics and many things in general, right? Because there seems to be a problem to say that making money is bad, but it also seems to be a problem to suggest the point is making money. It seems wrong to say that having a video get a lot of views is bad, but it also seems problematic to say that that's the point, right? So where do you draw the line, right? Like, and how do you draw the line? On what terms do you draw the line? And is it right or wrong? I think those are very serious questions. Like, if you're saying, well, I believe in these ideas, for example, and I think that people should hear them. First, are you being egotistical? Is that even true? But let's just say you're genuine, right? And it actually is the case. Well, then you say, well, maybe I should do an algorithm, pleasing cover picture of a face, thumbnail. Maybe I should.
A pleasing sacrifice, a pleasing aroma to the algorithm. It's so funny because so much of what you're steeped in, I mean, in terms of my history and my vocation, once he said pleasing, that just triggered all of these connections with a pleasing sacrifice, a pleasing aroma. This is a algorithm is our God.
Should do a title that has a certain provocateur to it that's going to grab people and so on and so forth, right? Like, how do you make those decisions? I think those are very important questions to ask. I think it also gets into why you're doing something. Can you do it and really know that it's in good faith? There's things to be said about it. I mean, it's just an open field of questions, right? Like, to what degree, if it is the case that people are more likely to watch a 45-minute conversation than a 2-hour one, should you make a point to only make it 45 minutes, right? At what point are you being wise? And at what point are you sacrificing your principles or sacrificing, the essential things in order to cater to the marketing and to the algorithm? I don't actually think many people at all have a clear sense of how to draw that line and how to think that line and things like that. I think about things also, I guess, like, I don't know. Like, I think about things in terms of, I look at the YouTube and I look at that kind of stuff as actually kind of making art, kind of an artistic thing. And I think the YouTube channel would honestly, almost as just a kind of simple point, I think the YouTube homepage, when you go to it, just simply does not look beautiful when it has a bunch of faces that look weird. I'm quite partial to photographs and images of Japan, like just photographs, because when you click the video there, I want it to have a certain.
And I've actually thought about this often, and if you're around here long enough, you know the kinds of thumbnails that I generally make and the kinds of thumbnails that I have made. And often when I'm making a thumbnail, I want to try to express something through it. And now I'm not about to say that my thumbnails have a lot of quality with respect to their artistic value, but I do put artistic attention into my thumbnails and try to, because again, I want to do something, I want to make something that I enjoy. And I continually tell people I'm a very selfish YouTuber because I make the kinds of videos I like to make. I talk about the kinds of things I want to talk about. I give the kind of titles I like. I give it the kind of thumbnails that I enjoy.
Art to it, right? The columns of the OG rows and the net kind of being symmetrical. To me, there's a certain aesthetic experience to that. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm not even saying it's the right way to do. But I will say that for me, doing in that way, that also kind of helps you, I guess, for me personally, there's a way in which that helps you continue believing in it because you see that you're maintaining the art of it and the spirit of it. Yeah. And I don't blame people who say do funny faced image pictures because, some people they've got to pay bills and they got to figure out how to make it work. I completely understand it. But I think, I guess the a thought I have about it. I don't want to say there's something wrong with going after the algorithm, but you must make sure whatever strategy you employ or however you go about being creative, it doesn't kill your spirit. And I know that sounds very simple, but it doesn't kill your sense that you're doing it for the right reasons, or you're doing it for the right. If you can use a clickbait title and not feel like you're sacrificing the right reasons, that's perfectly fine. Only you can know that. And maybe you need to do that because you're afraid of being seen as somebody that chases the algorithm. And in fact, it could be training you virtuous to face that fear and to face that judgment, right? So I can imagine a situation where being seen as someone chasing the algorithm is actually good for you, because you don't want to be seen that way, right? But then in another situation, I can see chasing the algorithm is very bad because you're afraid of not getting likes. And if nobody watches your videos, you don't make them. Well, that means you're doing it for the wrong reasons, potentially, right? Or you're.
And if you go back through, I've encouraged people to use YouTube and to play around with it, but I usually tell them, make the videos you want to make the kinds of videos that you would make whether or not anybody watches them. Because that's sort of what I figured out when I would blog back in the day, and nobody read my blog. I mean, every now and then some CRC, we'd get a little bit of CRC traction if there was a blog post that I decided to put on CRC Voices or on the Pastors of the CRC Facebook page. And then for me to get a blog post that would have 700 clicks was like massive. And I learned in that I wanted to be writing and reading and doing things that basically I saw the value of it. And if I saw the value of it, whether anybody read it or not, it was good enough. And I think the same is true of YouTube. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't look at the analytics and hope things go, make number go up, all of that.
You're going to be manipulative. You're going to go into manipulation or stuff like that. So it's an interesting question. And I actually think it speaks to larger questions of business and all that different stuff. So it's interesting.
I would love to talk about that stuff. What I'm thinking too, as you're saying that, is as an example, like the kinds of thumbnails OG Rose uses to use a photograph or something like that. That already too is signaling things to the unconscious, like people are just taking it in differently. And so even if you are thinking about wanting your art or your video or whatever to reach a particular kind of audience, I do think there's something in that. It goes beyond just the obvious, the words that you write on the thumbnail, or it's the stirring, and even in the picking of the photograph, there's the stuff that explicitly about why you picked that one, and then there's going to be the million and one reasons underneath that you have no idea why. It's like sometimes it's just that feels like the right one for this.
Yep.
And so it's the unconscious of the artist being sort of placed out there as a signal to, or as a potential sort of hook magnet for the unconscious of others. I do think there's something really important in that. When I think about those thumbnails with just the scary still face people, and again, I agree with you. We actually have a really good thumbnail of one of those. I saw the other day, I was trying to make some clips again, and I saw one of our old conversations. The one, I think it was a hologram one, where Daniel got frozen for ages. Yeah. And we were sitting there trying to act like everything was normal, and I could see
all normal
tension in your face and mine. And Daniel's just there frozen. Like that, exactly like that. That's the thumbnail we should actually use. And then Seth, you were just dropping profound knowledge while just looking like you were screaming. Anyway,
the whole time.
Serious land. There's something about that still face thumbnail that, again, I agree. It's very, very important for some people because they're using YouTube in a very particular way. They're trying to do something. They've got bills to pay. They're building something. I get it. So it's not a judgment. But it's interesting because that is the still.
We can afford a little bit of judgment.
Face experiment. Like it makes me think that is the kind of face that terrifies a baby. It's actually, I mean, I shouldn't make these sorts of judgments. I would say it's actually worse than just a parent who's angry at their child. When a baby just sees like a frozen kind of almost like slightly shocked, can't really see what's going on face, that's terrifying to a child because they can't get anything from it, and they're supposed to be extracting how they're supposed to feel from their caregiver is one way to think about it. This is supposed to be a mirroring experience.
And I find that so interesting because, of course, we've had still photography for years. And often when I'm traveling, I'll comment to my wife on who puts themselves on the roadside billboards. Accident attorneys, realtors. And I remember talking to a realtor about the kinds of photographs that realtors have on their cards, on their signs, on their ads. And the realtors even joke about the fact that it's like, you know, their high school picture +2, even though they might be in their 50s and 60s, but they've still got the young them on the glamour shot there on the billboard. And so there is an interesting element to this about what kind of environment we are creating, what kind of what exactly, and, you know, there's been plenty of material that's made on this. In an attention economy, what sorts of attention do we cultivate? And then it's usually any attention is good attention.
And there's nothing there. It's blank. It's like a horrifying blank on an emotional level. So I think it's really interesting that that's what people are, that seems to be what people click on, is that. And it makes me wonder how much of what is going on is trauma bonding. Just there's something. It's like, oh my.
And when she said that, I thought, oh, wow. When I look at how much doomerism is on YouTube and how much sky is falling and how much it's raging against the enemy. And, you know, obviously in our current political system, there is so much that's devoted to vilifying the opposition. So much that's devoted to it. And it's just all, and this has obviously been for a long time, but it's just everywhere now.
Oh my God, that's in the unconscious. Oh my God, that's my mother's still face again. I've got an opportunity for it to finally not be still. I can click on the video and see it move. It's repair. It's repair for my deep trauma. There's something in it, I'm telling you, because
that is the advanced marketing tip that I don't think has been revealed before. And that could be the title for this video. Psychological marketing trip revealed, you know?
No, it should just be
trauma bond.
Finally see your mother's frozen face repaired. Finally find out what your mother was feeling.
Yeah, finally. Click here.
I'm wondering how much of this is you're actually going to put on YouTube.
What's all going on?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all of it. All of it. It's gonna get taken down for hate speech because we're unveiling the secrets of the algorithm. Oh, that's it. Secrets of the algorithm. That's the title. That's it. Bam.
Well, I love
algorithm of the secret.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, secrets of the algorithm. Then it's a grow your channel big on YouTube type video, and then of course once they're 5 minutes into it, they're going to be disappointed. You're going to get the down pointer. People aren't going to finish your video, and then you get down rated. Come on, everybody knows this game.
Secrets.
Okay,
I'll go back.
I love the series of questions that you asked, Daniel.
Yes, please.
It would be good in this case, but not in that case. And what about this? And what about that? Which is a strategy I've noticed crops up from time to time in OG Rose. But what seems so powerful about it is just if we just pause and ask, how would you title your YouTube video? It's pretty obvious you're going to get a whole range of answers, and that some of the answers that other people give are going to be repulsive to the other person.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And it's actually a really good representation, I think, of the question. One of a single example, but it's an example of this situation of global pluralism, where
yes, it is.
It's not just that we have different points of view; it's that like your heaven is my hell, like your favorite is my, goes at the very bottom of the pile for me, and that's just and the number of ways that takes place is just probably growing by the day. The other thing that I find interesting is I was thinking about you know, if you're a content
Can I say
creator.
one sentence? I'm so sorry to cut in, Seth, just to underpin all that. Then perhaps so what you're getting at there too, though, is that the one thing that does bind all of us is, most of us, is trauma of some kind at a young age. And so that still face thumbnail is
well, that would be great to come back to.
Now, trauma is tremendously common, and trauma, of course, scales. And, you know, you have first world problems, you have third world problems. And we have, to a degree, fetishized trauma. And we have, you know, you can watch Tom Holland talk about this. We've sort of taken if you've got traditional religion, I call it common religion, that essentially says, if you are experiencing good favor, good fortune, and again, I should probably pull some stills out of there, but when I was in Italy a couple summers ago, just going through this amazing museum in Naples, and you know, well, the number one little idol statuette was to the god Fortuna. Everybody wants good fortune, and that's where the language comes from. And so if you experience good fortune, that shows that the gods are smiling upon you, the gods are favoring you, you've done something right. It's even in The Sound of Music. Whatever, you know, in your youth or childhood, I must have done something good. It's the idea that it's just basically karmic. And so then Nietzsche, of course, observes the inversion that Christianity does on the world and says, why is the sufferer the moral superior to the one causing the suffering? And this has been so deeply instilled in our culture via Christianity, Tom Holland's point, that, well, now suddenly, this is, you know, part of Nietzsche's critique, now suddenly we're bonding over trauma, and you have the scapegoating that Rene Girard pointed to. You have, you know, the suffering Olympics show that your group has suffered more than these other groups, and of course that puts you then on the moral pedestal, on and on and on and on.
Keep going, please.
What I was projecting you would say, because it's what I wanted to say.
Please project onto me, project away.
Well, I love the phrase, how is this a common experience? I mean, I think it's, you know, in the language of O.G. Rose, the Godel point is a common experience. But
okay, now this is something I've wanted to get on my channel for a few weeks now, because those of you who are German, we're going to have to learn how to say this word, because to American ears, it sounds like the Godel point, which, being the boomer that I am, brings me back to commercials back in the 60s and 70s. I can't believe it's a girdle, but it is not a girdle. And one of the main theses that Daniel pushes is this issue about Godel and completeness. And this is a major issue, and this issue ties a ton of things together and is a super helpful window into the world. Now, I don't have a lot of time to go through that, but I wanted to set it up, and I wanted to point to this video, and let's just go into it a little bit, because it is in fact a huge point.
Yeah, we probably label it trauma most of the time.
Yes.
Oh, that's the experience of not knowing what the hell is going on in this social situation. That's the experience of feeling totally frozen. But the thing is, we have it in common, except for you, it happens in this situation. For me, it happens in that situation. So it's also easy for us to miss and to assume that everyone else here is not only comfortable in the moment that I'm triggered, but they're always comfortable all the time.
Yeah.
I'm the one who's got problems, or, you know, of course we can do it in the other direction and, you know, think that we're the one who's got it all figured out. But
I love that, Seth. That's really, yeah.
Yeah, and well, I guess what I'm also trying to get at here is how, on the one hand, I think if you really slow down and talk about it, and I think that's maybe, you know, for the millions of people who watch our videos, I think that is some of the value of what comes up here. And in a lot of discussions on the liminal web or the social coordinating mechanisms, it's people just sort of talking about, hey, you know, you know what happens when you're in this situation and someone says blah, blah, blah. And everyone's like, yeah, I know that. I know that feeling. But it's like, we actually need to do that. We need to realize that these experiences that we have, especially as atomized as we are now, are not so unique, that all kinds of people are going through this. And just to come back to the algorithm, but I think it's a specific example of this.
And to jump ahead to where more of the video is going to go, part of this is a function of the pervasive pluralism that we live in the midst of, and the conflict between worldviews, and the, you know, Rod Dreher talks about liquid modernity. Who gets it from? I forget his name. Dreher wrote about that years ago, and I remember he Bauman. Dreher, it was so funny. Dreher basically took the guy's chapter and posted it on his blog, and of course I squirrel these things away because it's like, oh yeah, that's not going to stay up very long because that is copyrighted material. So yeah, not supposed to do that, but I did it so that I could go back and read that chapter again. And it's almost like we not only have liquid modernity, we have liquid religiosity. And in that liquid religiosity in the culture, it means that for the most part, so many of our deep structural baser instincts, desires, and needs are going to increasingly shape this. And when you line that up with the Enshtification of, you know, what's happening in the media that is increasingly what we share, you know, the three major networks became four, but those networks, there were strict limits by the government, by the post-war consensus on, you know, what you could and couldn't see. And of course, it sort of gets blown away by cable. You know, at that point, you have Neil Postman writing Amusing Himself to Death, which is part of how this channel started, because I was reading that when I was trying to think through what was going on with Jordan Peterson. I was trying to think about YouTube. Of course, the medium is the message. So this thing goes fairly deep.
I was thinking about if you're a content creator and you're kind of trying to figure out the algorithm, well, yeah, you can like listen to marketers, you can do a lot of stuff, but you know, it's famous that they keep changing the damn thing. And it's kind of a mystery, right? It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like fishing. You throw your fishing line, except the way the algorithm operates, as opposed to, let's say, we're hunter-gatherers looking for a meal.
And now we might say fishing, but of course, it's this world of chaos and uncertainty that religion, that very quickly religion begins to address. And I would say in some ways it's sort of the motive, it's the prompt for religion. P.F. Jung, once he releases the conversation that we had this week, so I had all these conversations scheduled this week, and I had to, on one day, I had to cancel two of them. We're going to postpone them into later in the month. Religion is the longest conversation that human history has had. And that has everything to do with fishing. It has everything to do with that experience. Now, we have that experience, and you know, maybe you're watching Alone, where, you know, they're fishing just to survive. And so you watch these poor starving people on Alone, just, you know, Alone gets very religious very quickly, and it gets very pagan very quickly. It gets very primordial very quickly. It gets very karmic very quickly, where, well, I'd better do these things right. I'd better honor the animal before I consume it. And so this gets into then this Godel. Now, maybe I'll talk about that. Well, let's go a little bit more.
Is it more predictable, less predictable than that? Like, I mean, again, like you could think of a million different instances, but I think it's, you know, and the specific thing we were just talking about, you know, like if we use, I mean, it's kind of, I don't know, fishing is not a bad metaphor, at least for a certain way of thinking about marketing. Although, you know, if we think that we're sticking hooks into other people's throats and pulling them towards us. That's kind of
It's
like
catch and release, catch and release.
no, yeah, that's right. Watch my video, and then you can then
Oh, it's in the darkness. Bind them, because if you really want to build your empire, you don't like the churn.
you can go on through
Yeah.
that. Just like and subscribe. then
Actually,
you're
I like fishing, and because I've got. Please continue. I think the fishing one's good. I can.
well. I mean,
continue.
those are some of the basic thoughts I had, but I also just was listening back to the last episode of The Net where you all were talking about the role of art, and I didn't get all the way through it, and
I missed it.
there's a lot of discussion of anime, which I haven't watched at all, but it was really interesting what was being talked about, and you said at one point, Daniel, you were talking about, I mean, from what I got, a bunch of people have all kinds of thoughts about anime, but what really stood out for me is like, these are cartoons that are not for children. So we are making use of the format of animation to do things that in live action are impossible. So that it would be kind of stupid to do it in a live action movie. But now we can tell stories, with people whose bodies that transform or whatever supernatural kind of thing you want. But we can also do it, and draw on archetypes. We can make real art. We can do deep storytelling. And anyway, Daniel, you said something about the role of art in like making plain the experience of global pluralism.
Yes.
Like we can show two people who have completely two different worldviews interacting, and the viewer will have a clear experience of, oh, this is a person who thinks this talking to a person who thinks that, and look at how it plays out.
Boy, that's complicated. Because in a sense, you basically say, and this was sort of the dream of The View from Nowhere. This is the self-flattery of the Western perspective, that the hegemon after the World War looks over the globe and says, we see the world clearly. We'll call Hinduism what the Hindus, the Indians, have as their religion. We'll label that, and by labeling, again, this is part of Tom Holland's point, by labeling Judaism, well, that's the religion of the Jews, but religion has this certain container. By the time that you can see that two people aren't connecting because they're within these different worldviews, it's sort of connected to Scott Adams' two movies, you have to imagine that you're somehow sitting above, and that the view you have is a function of where you're sitting, and you're just one step away from imagining you're seeing things as they are, and everyone else is playing these different movies in their own different silos. But of course, you see the big picture. It's the deceit of the blind man and the elephant story, because you already know what an elephant is. You've seen the story, but of course, that thing sort of turns in on itself, and you then have to realize that no, you are just as much within something, seeing those two things. And so the function of the seeing the two things is actually a part of the larger frame, which of course, that's part of what, let's say, The Matrix and its sequels plays with. Because when you get into the sequels, then suddenly, of course, at the beginning, Neo has these powers when he goes into the Matrix, but then there's the Neo outside and the Neo inside. So now you have an outside and an inside. And then suddenly, when the Neo outside engages the squiggly robots and can stop them, well, what does that mean? And it's part of the point here.
It's I think it's a common experience in our lives right now. So I really appreciated that, and I'll stop. But just lastly, like what you said about making the thumbnails on the videos for OG Rose be artistic. I often think of YouTube as a medium where you certainly can do art, but for the most part, you don't see art here. And so just presenting art in a place where it seems slightly out of context, it's a certain kind of signal. All of these things are signals, and of course, we're sending all kinds of signals that we don't understand that we're sending. But
yeah, there's something about I'll be very quick, Daniel. There's something about putting a photograph as the thumbnail. Again, just as an example. But to me, there's something more honest about that. And I guess that's just because of me and what I do and how I think about things. But
All right, I have to stop here and I have to accelerate because I have to go home because I have a council meeting and because I yada 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 yada. I got all these things I got to do. So I'm just going to pull up here. When I first heard this in Charlie's little corner, I had to do a little bit of research on it. So I used some AI and farted around with it. And the Godel point, and again, you Germans can help us know how to say that word, is a metaphor for the inherent incompleteness, vulnerability, or hole in the center of existence. The author is borrowing from Kurt Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which state that in any logical system, there are truths that cannot be proven by the system itself. And this is, in some ways, John Vervaeke sort of discovers this, talking to Bishop Maximus. In my own theological tradition, it's sort of expressed in presuppositionalism. The text defines the gestalt of being as a whole in the Gödel point. This suggests that reality and the self is not a closed, perfect, or self-contained loop. There's always a gap, a point of the unknown, the irrational, the undefined. It is the non-rational. The text explicitly. So I had to do something. I had to create I had to do a bunch of work in order to produce this. It's by no means perfect, and I really like what Daniel does more in the video. But again, I don't have time to go into that. So you can find the link to the video below, and you can click on it. You can pursue it more if you're a digger like me. The Gödel point represents the part of existence that cannot be logically systematized or controlled. The great fork. How do you relate to the point? The central thesis of the text is that the Gödel point itself is neutral. It is your relationship to that. It's your relationship to it that determines your fate. The text presents two opposing ways to interact with this whole. Path A of life, dwelling in it. You accept the whole, the vulnerability, the lack of closure. Negentropy, you gain flexibility, dance, insight, authentic resonance, life, or the wiggly. Path B, which is death, using it for invincibility. And I really like the way Daniel goes into that. You try to plug the hole or use the system to make yourself indestructible or safe. Entropy, you achieve equilibrium, stagnation, and rigidity, and you wind up with death and rationality. The text highlights the great conspiracy or counterintuitive truth. Rational logic usually leads us to being indestructible means of life and survival in life. The Gödel logic in this text tries to be indestructible is actually death. Why? Because total invincibility implies the closed system with no movement, no change, no energy flow. Vulnerability is vitality. By giving up indestructibility, you remain open. This openness allows for the negentropy, the reverse of disorder and chaos. To be alive is to be flexible, vulnerable, and wiggly. And he really runs through it well. And yeah, did a little bit of work on, of course, the problem with this stuff is it generates so much stuff, and there's no Gödel point in that piece. So that's all I got time for. But just give you a little something to chew on, and you can follow up in the comments section. By all means, check out the video below, because I only touched the first 20 minutes of it, and it's a 2-hour video. And I've only been through about 2/3 of it, but it's really good and it's really helpful. So that'll give you a little something to chew on. Leave a comment.